recording. Thanks very much, Richard. Please take it away.
Can I check? Hi guys, first of all, I'm just loading my deck up. I've had to reboot my PC because you couldn't hear me last time, but I've got 50 minutes and it's a hard stop, is that right?
It is, because these guys have got a class they have to go to at 11:20.
Fine, so I'm going to crack on. I mean, yell and ask me questions as we go. I can't see you, so just shout. So I'm going to crack on with 50 minutes to check my watch. So 11:20 is the end, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, right. So hi, pleased to be here, pleased to speak to you. I'm Richard Bagnall. I am an ex-PR pro. Began my career in working at agencies and in-house. But 30 years ago, I blundered more by accident and chance than any kind of strategic plan into the early days of comms evaluation and measurement. And that's where I spent my career. I've run some of the biggest agencies in the world, specializing in that. I've been the chairman of AMEC, the Global Trade Association, for 6 years. I'm still on its board as one of its founder members. I can't use Excel. I'm a PR guy. I can't use Excel. I'm not a data wonk. I'm not a data nerd. And you don't have to be. But what you do have to do, if you want to succeed in your career, is you have to lean in and pay attention and think about measurement and evaluation, because it's only going to get more important. I'm going to talk to you about why it's getting more important. I'm going to depress you all, and then I'm going to tell you that actually it's not that much of a difficult thing. And I'm going to give you some pointers on things that you'll be able to research about, learn about, and will guide you and stand you in good stead for your career. So on that basis, let's begin. I'm beginning with a quote from the head of UK government communications. Obviously, with the election results overnight, it looks like this government is absolutely on its last legs. But you may remember when it came into power was 13 odd years ago with the coalition government. And that was the age of austerity. And I tell you what would be great, guys, if you could mute, because I'm getting a bit of sort of feedback. If you can mute your end, that would help me. The coalition government came in, and they asked UK government communications what they did, how much they cost, what they achieved. And all they were able to do was say, well, we got like loads of clips and we got loads of impressions. And the incoming government said, but what value did you create? Did you save any lives? Did you help us drive any policy and opinion? And they weren't able to answer that. And so the incoming government, in the age of austerity, said, well, if you don't know what you achieve, then you're going to have to achieve basically nothing with half the budget. And they slashed their budget in half. Loads of people lost their jobs. They brought Alex Aitken in, and he's turned UK government communications. He's not political. You don't think of him as a Tory. His job is to make the communications more effective. And he knew that to do that, he had to put evaluation at the heart of it. I'm not going to read the quote out. You can see it on the slide there. And this matters because, frankly, it's obvious the world has gone to shit. When I put this deck together, the whole situation in Gaza hadn't happened, and that just is compounded shit that we've gone to, right? Everything is on fire. Everything is miserable. It began in 2008, really, with the financial crisis, then austerity. Then we had Brexit. We had the rise of populism. Then we had Trump and Boris and all those idiots. Then and we got populism throughout Europe as well, of course. Then we had COVID, the dreaded C word. And then just when we thought that we were coming out of COVID, we've gone into cost of living, inflation, supply chain problems. The shops are empty. Everybody's miserable. Hot war in Europe, and now, a terrible situation in Gaza as well. And I'm afraid it just doesn't look like anything's going to get better. But it's going to get worse probably before it gets better. I hate saying that. Word of the year in 2022 was permacrisis, and I think that sums it up. And that matters because it's having an effect on not just you as people, but it's having an effect on the audiences and the people that you're going to want to be communicating to when you become professional PR pros, when you become communicators. Audiences are turning away from this permacrisis, this deluge of shit that's in all of our lives. It's making people disengage. You've got the classic two screening going on where, I've got an 8-year-old son. If I can get his attention, even when he's asking me a question, I think I've done well. You have people two screening, three screening, they're not paying attention, but they're actually, it's more sinister than that. We're not paying attention because we're fed up with the news. Deliberate news avoidance in the UK is at an all-time high. 4 in 10 people deliberately avoid the news. So they actually, if the news comes on, they turn it off. Now we're going to, you and your careers are going to be in the industry of trying to get news out there about your clients, but you're going to have people who are trying to actually disengage from it. Interest in the news has gone from 63% in 2017. People said they're interested in the news just after Brexit. That's gone down to 51% today. It's declined at the fastest rate that it's ever done. It's doubled in the last 5 years. It's highest in your age group. All the under 44s particularly are just turning away from the news. But even old farts like me and Ruth, 1 in 3 over 55s are deliberately avoiding the news. Media is in a terrible spin, right? Print, what I used to, my job when I moved into PR was sorting out our print cuttings. Print is largely irrelevant now. You can see the green chart on this slide. You see the effect of COVID, which of course accelerated the decline of print because people weren't able to go out and buy a newspaper. They weren't able to deliver them to the doors. So it made people turn more to digital. But print has been in terminal decline for a long, long time. Only 23% of adults use print as a source of news. Only 18% of the 18 to 24s, your age group, and only 28% of over 55-year-olds, the old farts like me. I have to be honest, I love a Sunday Times on a Sunday. But even when I get the Sunday Times, I hardly get the time to read it. And I think if, I ask all of us to be honest and think of the last time we read an article, did we read the whole thing? Or did we just look at the headline and the picture and the first couple of paragraphs, and then, the attention economy, we're bored, we're turning to the next page. And you might say to me, well, that's fine, Richard, because we're going online and we're looking at the online news sources, not the print. Print's dead. We're looking at online. But all of the digital online platforms are seeing structural decline in their readership. Year after year, they are all shrinking in terms of the amount of people that are actually coming to read the content. I was at a publishing event recently with the major publishers, and they were saying from the stage, if they can get a user to stay on their site for more than 3 minutes, then they feel that's an achievement. And that's on the site, that's not on an article. And if you think about their business model, which is they need revenue to pay for journalists who are going to give educated, intelligent copy for people to read. That was the original idea of the media. This is a problem because you have to monetize, and you either monetize by selling adverts, and if you're going to sell adverts, you need people looking at your content and paying attention so that you can market the advert, or you need to go behind a paywall. So they're all going off behind paywalls. 41% of the key global websites and the latest Reuters Institute, the study of journalism research, said that they are going behind a paywall. The problem with that is people don't want to pay for a paywall. So only 17% of the UK population are prepared to pay for a paywall. That number has not grown in the last 2 years. So this is an area that publishers hope will escalate, but it hasn't grown. People aren't prepared to pay. Your age group particularly is looking to cut paywalls where they have bought them because they either have ways around them, things like, you might know that website, 12-foot ladder, for a 10-foot paywall. It gets you behind paywalls without having to pay. But in a cost of living crisis where you're having to pay for rent and everything else, food's getting expensive, you have to make your priorities, and paying for content is not a priority. So the youth aren't paying. The older people are, but mainly the over 50s. They're actually the wrong type of people that the media should be targeting anyway. And most of the subs that older people are paying are going only to the large media brands. So the publishers of the future are struggling to make any money. As I say, it's a discretionary spend. And as a result of that, it's no wonder that journalism, the people that you as PR professionals need to have a relationship with, is losing its way. There is an era of performance by results for journalists where they're being measured on how long they can keep people on their article. And as a result, they're trying to titillate audiences. So it's about sensational photos and sensational headlines. In fact, only 4 in 10 of us read beyond headlines and photos anyway. And you get stupid things like this. I don't know if you remember it, but the Daily Telegraph used to be a absolute quality premium paper when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. It was a sensible paper. And here with the Prince Andrew scandal, they resorted to this. The 2 journalists, there they are sitting in the bath with the strap-on faces of the 2 characters from the story. It's just so unprofessional. And I thought this was a great quote. This is so unhinged. The concept of hinges can no longer be discussed in relation to Telegraph. All the doors have fallen off. This is the behavior that is driven by this desperation to try and attract eyeballs because they're trying to get revenue. And what they're doing is they're creating more and more stupid content, which is resulting in this, which is we're not trusting the media. And the rate of decline in trust in the media is higher now than it's ever been. It's the rate of the amount of people who trust the media is at an all-time low. And that's measured by the Reuters Institute, by Edelman, and by Pew Center of Research as well in America. They all agree that the percentage of us that trust the media is at an all-time low. And I think this is terrifying because in the absence of trusting the media, what do? Well, we go down filter bubbles from our online and our social. And you might say to me, well, it's fine because I get my news on social. Well, you do, but you get sensationalist short form content. It's video. You can see the mainstream publishers trying to get into your TikTok feeds. They're going to portrait videos. But the quality of news on social it's so easy to cheat, to fake, to sensationalize, to not give you an actual balanced opinion, that it is driving further schisms in society. It's driving more populism. It's driving this concept of I think this, you think that, and ne'er the twain shall meet. We're not going to meet in the middle. And it is frightening to this old git's view with an 8-year-old son of what the damage this is doing to society actually is. But if you think you're going to target social channels to reach audiences, well, good luck with that. You used to be able to get them all on Twitter and, of course, now X, but X has become pretty much a ghost town. I was in America 2 days ago at the biggest PR conference in the States, 5,000 PR professionals there. It was in Nashville. This is called the PRSA International Conference, hashtag PRSA Icon. This used to trend on Twitter every year. I mean, there were tens of thousands of tweets, and it would be one of the top 10 global trending topics every year. I started going to this conference in the mid-noughties. This year, I could almost count on the hands of, digits of one hand, how many tweets were coming out of the conference. Nothing. No one's using this platform anymore. The journalists are hardly using it. Again, at that media event I was at, they were saying we don't trust anything that we see on X. It's one of the things that they resented the most. But also, audiences are just fragmented and blown away from there anyway. There's a whole host of different new competitors, Post and Mastodon and Blue Sky and all of those, and of course Threads. Although Threads has said it doesn't want to do news, Facebook is actually pulling back from news, and you're getting the rise of these sort of more private communities like Guild, like Snapchat, like Telegram, like WhatsApp communities, where you can't even get in to hear what people are talking about anyway. So good luck thinking you're going to distribute your news and have any ability to actually know what's being said about you through these channels. This is only going to get more difficult in the future. And to pour gasoline on the fire, I'm afraid the rise of generative AI is going to change things in a way that none of us quite realize. Obviously, we've got a picture here that's fake. You might remember the picture of the Pope, which I think we all love, dressed up as a rapper in his puffer jacket. It just looked incredibly real. It gets shared everywhere. People believe it. This is so dangerous and divisive. Sorry, I've got a plumber here. He's just saying something. I think hopefully he's talking to my wife. Yes, he is. Good. Um, uh, um, yes, this is so dangerous, and it's only going to get worse. Again, here is The Economist a few months ago, and this quote just sent fear through me. Right, we've got something like half of the world's democracies in terms of number of people are having an election next year. The UK included in that, the US included in that. Expect malicious influence networks, right? Not just a site, networks complete with fake websites, Twitter bots, Facebook pages, TikTok feeds, and much more, supplying disinformation, which is soon going to be infinite. And they're going to make it look like it is real. And our ability to know what is real and what isn't is getting squeezed and challenged the whole time. With this flood of content, how are you going to generate content that is going to stand out? How are you going to get it to your audiences that are turning away, that are fragmented? These are real challenges. And then it's not helped by my industry. So here's a warning when you get into the business world about the industry that says we'll do media intelligence for you. The industry that I've worked in for 30 years has been hugely attractive to venture capital and private equity businesses who see data as the new oil, and they've come in investing into these businesses. Why? Well, there's a simple reason: because they generate cash. Businesses that generate cash are attractive. How do they generate cash? Because you spend money building a software platform once. Okay, you build a platform, build it once. That costs quite a bit of money to build it, to get it right, to add the features and functionality. But then you sell it many, many times. And the first few sales that you get are paying back your investment on what it costs to build. But once you hit a tipping point, every sale is like ka-ching, 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 and it's money, what they call, goes straight down to the bottom line. In other words, it goes straight to profit. And that profit just scales at a rapid rate because I'm selling the same thing again and again and again. So venture capital companies have come plowing in. You can see how big this market's expected to grow. That's created an influx of salespeople making bigger and bigger promises about platforms that are measuring not in the right way. And I'm going to talk to you about that, because what they're doing is they're measuring what we call counts and amounts. They're measuring the stuff that's easy to do. They've got to do it once for everybody, right? So they're counting the things like impressions, number of clips, number of shares, reposts, like, that kind of stuff. But that's not the value of the work you're doing. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And so there's a huge disconnect between what clients want, those of you who are going to go and work in client side, and what agencies deliver, those of you who are going to go and work agency side. Think about this. So clients, when you ask them, what do clients want their PR agency to do? They want them to help support sales, drive reputation, and support brand purpose. Okay, those are the top three objectives that they ask PR agencies to support them with. When you ask PR agencies, how do you measure your work? They say, oh, we count clips. We give an advertising value equivalent. We provide engagement metrics. Well, what are engagement metrics? Engagement metrics are likes, shares, retweets, that kind of stuff. Oh, we provide the sentiment of the content that we've generated. Guys, none of this talks to the value that the client wants. So what the agencies are doing is they're just being activity centers, counting stuff that doesn't matter. And that becomes a problem, because when the world's on fire, which sadly it is, and looks like it's going to continue to be so, CFOs cut back their costs, right? The job of a CFO, let me tell you this before you go into your business, their job is to ensure the growth and stability and ongoing viability of the organization that they work for. And it doesn't matter if they're a government department, a council, a charity, or Coca-Cola, right? The CFO's job is to ensure that that organization, and I use the word organization carefully rather than company, whatever organization it is, and continue to exist successfully. Okay, so What can they do when the world's on fire, right? Everything's shit. What am I going to do? Am I going to press this lever and invest in sales and invest in more marketing and spend, spend, spend? Well, that's too risky, isn't it, when I don't know what's going to happen? So I pull my other lever, which is I cut my costs. So they're sitting there right now, CFOs all over the world with red pens on their budgets, and they're scratching out costs. They're scratching out activity that doesn't have value. And if PR professionals continue to try and invent new metrics and say, "Oh, isn't it great? I got you, 500 tweets and a billion impressions," and they can't link through to the value that you create for the organization through your PR and comms work, you're screwed. Okay, so this is serious stuff. CFOs are cutting back at the moment. They are not spending for the sake of spending. You cannot be an activity that doesn't have value. You have to demonstrate your value. So we'll talk about that. But it is no wonder that, Edelman, the world's biggest PR agency, is laying off loads of its staff. They all are. They all are. The tech PR sector at the moment, one of my friends on a WhatsApp PR group I'm on described it as a bloodbath. That was his words, not mine. He said that it's a bloodbath going on out there right now. And I'm afraid this is an industry that does not take this stuff seriously in terms of how to measure its work because people don't lean in. So if I can give you one tip for your career right now, it's lean into this stuff. Remember, I am the bloke who made a career in this industry and can't use Excel. I'm a PR guy. If I can do it, you can do it, but you have to lean in and pay attention. I don't mean to what I'm talking about. It'd be nice if you did that as well, but you have to lean in and pay attention to how you're going to demonstrate value and not just activity when you go into the workplace. So I told you I was going to depress you. I hope I've done a good job. Here's the stormy trends. The world's on fire. Everything's gone to shit. Audiences are out of reach. AI is going to make it a huge amount worse. There's a massive disconnect between clients are paying the money and agencies, what they're doing. Private equity is actually making the whole situation worse because they're selling you tools that aren't going to help you. CFOs are tightening their budgets, cutting spend, and therefore new business for agencies is really difficult. And it's going to be difficult for you to get a job. Let's be honest. So you're going to get a job by going in and talking to the people who are going to recruit you and showing that you get this stuff and that you are someone who can help them demonstrate value. So I told you I'd depress you. Now I'm going to tell you that it's not actually so difficult. So how are we going to fix this? Right. Well, the answer actually is hiding in absolutely plain sight. Here is my definition. It's not a definition. It's just let's all sort of hold hands over the internet and embrace each other and agree that broadly this is what PR is. Right. It's about communicating the right message to the right people at the right time in the right place for a reason, which is to achieve an objective. And that objective could be anything. It could be sales, footfall, hits to a website, reputation, knowledge, propensity, likelihood to purchase, advocacy, blah, 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 blah. There's a million different objectives that organizations will want you to support with. And your key to unlocking all of this puzzle is making sure that you understand this bottom line. What is it that the organization that is employing you as an in-house PR pro or is employing you as a PR agency wants you to support? What they won't want you to do is deliver 3 press releases. They won't want you to get 12 tweets, the Delhi counter of counts and amounts. No, they won't want that. They want you to support an organizational objective, the sort of things listed at the bottom. So we have to understand that and we have to measure our work against that. Now, we talk in our industry of 3 broad types of metrics. I'm going to briefly explain to you what they are. They're very simple. Think of the pictures I've put here for you as well. Outputs, outtakes, outcomes. Outputs, right? The stuff on the left on this slide. Outputs is the stuff that we generate as a result of our work. So I've got a picture of, I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman, whatever, who cares? Somebody holding a whole load of newspapers, right? But think of that as digital content, broadcast content, owned media content, the stuff that you generate. Outputs. That's what we call outputs. The stuff we've done our work and stuff is created, whether it's on our website, whether it's on social, whether it's digital, whether it's broadcast, the stuff that we generate. our audiences hopefully see the stuff, and the lady in the middle thinks about it, and that's called an outtake, right? What is she thinking about? Is your reputation improving? Is she more aware of whatever it is that you're up to? And then once she's thought about it, hopefully she'll go on to do something. And this guy on the right here with his outcome, with his chart, that's a chart showing, well, hopefully we're showing that sales are going up, right? So outputs, outtakes, outcomes. Outputs is the stuff. Outtakes is what we now think, having seen the stuff or heard the stuff. And outcomes is having thought about it, what do we now do, right? Those are the three broad buckets of metrics. Pretty basic. The trouble is, all the measurement in the industry is over here. All those platforms powered by venture capitalists that you build once and sell many times are sitting here. They are counting stuff. Okay, they're counting activity, impressions, number of clips, likes, shares, retweets, and they've got beautiful dashboards, beautiful charts. I call it chart porn. It looks amazing, gorgeous, right? But just because it looks pretty doesn't mean we should spend much time with it, Be careful of this stuff, because this is activity measurement. And the problem is, your organization that you work for will not give a shit about this. Businesses care about this on the middle and on the right, outtakes and outcomes. Are you supporting the organizational objective? This middle and right hand side is about organizational objective. The left hand side is about the stuff that we do. If we only measure the stuff on the left, we are screwed. Okay, what we have to do is we have to measure the stuff on the left, but we have to think about it. What does this organization want us to do? And we have to measure what people think and what people do and tie it all together to tell a meaningful measurement story. And I wanted to give you an example. This is my old business from, if I had more time, I'd do a competition. Who can tell me what that logo is? I'm going to shortcut it. This is one of the world's biggest companies back in the 90s that we were pitching to. It's America Online. Of course, what's happened to them now. This is in the days of dial-up modems and all that stuff. But this is how we did our media content analysis. And you can see these metrics. You can even see the prices. And you can see everything here is a count and amount from the left-hand side of that slide. This is just measuring activity. And this is how the industry began. And this is the old days. These are the type of metrics that are in these platforms today. Volume, number of clips, the thud factor, column inches, advertising value equivalents, basic content analysis on the outputs, and no links to outtakes and outcomes. So this is the old days. And the trouble is, the old days are being redressed in these platforms. And Ruth wanted me to really convey to you how we have to move away from just the temptation to do this stuff and measure the value of our work as well. And so AMEC, the trade association that I chaired for 6 years, I'm still a board director, and I was one of its founder members 27 years ago, I'm appalled to admit, exist to drive and support education, and we do it for free. We invest the money we make back into making free educational resources. And when we joined, my business partner said, we're going to join this new association called AMEC. It's an association of our competitors. I was like, no, we're not. I was a 27-year-old competitive bloke trying to kill my competitors. I was like, we're not going to help. Why would we do that? And he said, because we're going to help them. And I said, why are we going to help our competitors? He said, because a rising tide lifts all ships, Richard. And anyway, he was older than me and more senior than me, and he won and I didn't. But he was right and I was wrong. And it gives me an excuse to show you this nice calming picture after I've depressed you all, which is the south coast of the UK. It's a harbour, and it's low tide. Twice a day, the tide comes in here and all these ships rise. And this was the concept behind AMEC, that the rising tide, getting everybody to understand the importance of this, is good for the industry and it matters. And he was right, I was wrong, and AMEC matters. So AMEC created something in 2010. It's the first stab at trying to get any kind of consistency on measurement beyond just counts and amounts, called the Barcelona Principles. They're linked. Ruth will share this deck with you. They're linked at that plus sign in the bottom left of the screen. I haven't got much time. I'm not going to talk about them, but they're 7. You can read the slide there. The 7 things listed on the left, a bit more detail on the right. there's 7 broad statements around what we should do about measurement. They're most famous, really, because they were when advertising value equivalents were first agreed globally, that they are an invalid metric. Now, again, I don't have time. You can read it. There's a link at the bottom on this slide. What are advertising value equivalents and why are they a shit metric? What they are is basically they're an old-fashioned approach where people said, I will add up all of this space that you got as editorial, and had it been an advert, it would have cost you this amount of money. And therefore, I can say, look, Mr. Jones, all this media relations work we've done, if it had been advertising, it would cost X. So look at the value of the work that we've done. But it isn't the value of your work. And there's 22 reasons why it isn't, and they're listed there. And the Barcelona principles, the first time the industry actually came together and said, you know what, this metric that people have been using is invalid, it's bogus. So please read this, because this matters, that you don't join a company that gets you to do this. It's in steep decline as a metric, but people still use it. So how are we going to measure our work? How are we going to measure across paid, earned, shared, and owned? The peso model that you've probably heard about. How are we going to measure across that? How are we going to measure across not just the content that's generated, the outputs, but what people think, the outtakes, and the outcomes as well? You know, what the hell? Because these Barcelona principles, they're like a 30,000-foot view. They're like when you're in an airplane flying over a city. You know, you can see the city down below you, but you know, I'll be screwed if you can tell me how to walk from Soho to Notting Hill from up there. You need a clear plan to do it. So AMEC created the integrated evaluation framework, and it has been a huge success. There's a whole microsite on AMEC's webpage. It's here. Your students, please take that URL. Please go and read the documents and the information on this microsite, because this explains it all at a much slower and more dignified pace than I'm roaring through this for you. But go to this URL. It's been translated into 22 languages across the world. It's in use at more than 2,500 organizations, including NATO, the World Food Bank, the United Nations, you know, organizations of that kind, HSBC, Slimming World. I mean, from the biggest to the smallest, from the most important to, you know, the most sort of consumer focused organizations, use the process of evaluation, how to do it, that this framework is. And this is what it is. You put your organization at the center of it, and you start at sort of 12 o'clock in the pink zone there. And so the first thing we have to do is we have to understand what our organization exists to do. What is its purpose? What does it want? What matters to it? How does it want communications and PR to support that? So we understand the organizational objectives and the comms objectives, and we map them together. And that's that sort of pink zone from 12 till 2. Then before we do anything, we need to come up with a strategy and a plan. But before we can do that, we need, you know, if you're going to begin a journey, right, you need to know from where you're beginning. If I just said to you, right, everyone off to Bognor Regis, here's a map, well, you need to know where you are before you head off to Bognor Regis, right? So you need to do a benchmark of where are we? Okay, they want us to, what matters is we need to really drive awareness and reputation. Well, where is it at the moment? What do people think of us? Who's aware? Who isn't? What resource do I have in place? What budget? So who's my target audience? Who am I trying to reach? What are they reading, watching, listening? Hint, everybody's media habits, remember the beginning of this talk, have changed significantly. And they also changed significantly in the pandemic. So make sure you understand your target audience. Who are they? What are they reading? Blah, blah, blah. Then you come up with your plan. And that's all the stuff that you're learning on your course, and you can implement it. We're now at 6 o'clock in that green zone. But look at the outside grey circle. Look how much of this is about preparing and planning. And don't forget that when you go into industry. You'll be so tempted to just do stuff because it's so busy, but you've got to plan. You've got to take the breath, take the time to think about how you're going to do this work, how you're going to measure it in a meaningful way. Then once you've implemented, we're at 6 o'clock, we go around into the blue zone from 7 till sort of 10:30. And you can see those terms we've been talking about: outputs, outtakes, outcomes. and then we link it all together and we can talk about the organizational impact. And you create a measurement story, and you can use the framework. This is a screen grab of how it is. It's interactive. Please go and have a play with it. You can log in, create an account. It all gives you, it's all interactive. So it gives you support and suggestions, blah, 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 blah. So that's the AMEC framework. It's a process to help you measure, that measures not just the stuff that you do, but linking it through to what people think and what people did, and tying it together to say that is the value of the work that we created. And that value has, resonance with the organization where you are. A lot of people say to me, well, hold on, my PR objectives are actually at the top of the funnel. You've probably seen this. This is a very basic one. There are many marketing funnels. This is pretty much the most simple one I could find. A lot of PR work is around awareness and interest, and it isn't so much about actually driving tangible sales. Well, that's okay. It doesn't have to be. If your outcome is an outtake, if you like, that is okay. And it ends up looking like this. The AMEC framework is designed to be tailored. And here's an example I've shared with you of how Karma thinks about it. We talk about see, think, and do. Outputs, see, outtakes, think, outcomes, do. And we split it like this, and you can see I put example slides. As I say, Ruth will share this deck with you, so it'll give you lots of clues there, lots of help to support you. But you can see that we've gone across the top: objectives, so in other words, our plan in the left-hand column, activity, what did we do, outputs, the stuff that we generated, and then what we've done is we've grouped into outcomes, outtakes as well. And that's a nod to this, that not everybody's outcomes are always sales. So you can just tailor the framework, but you use it as a structure. So I hope that slide will be useful for you. Just a couple of other resources. I'm not going to talk about them. Planning matters so much in PR. I think I made that point. I want to stress it again. You have to have a plan. If you're failing to plan, you're planning to fail, right? And it is the number one crime that happens in our industry is PR people just do stuff. I've got this great idea. Let's build a massive rubber duck and we're going to float it down the Thames. It will get all the front pages. That used to be the classic PR stunt to generate content. There's no plan of why. You've got to ask yourself, the way to get to a plan is, why are we going to do this? And you ask that 3 or 5 times. Why? Well, we want to get lots of coverage. Why do we want to get lots of coverage? Well, we want women who own dogs to know about our new product. Why do we want them to know about our new product? Because we're launching a new dog biscuit on Wednesday week. Okay, we're starting to get to the real reason. Well, then is actually floating a giant dog biscuit down the Thames the right approach, or should we be being more strategic? So the AMEC planning guide is brilliant. If you don't have a plan, you can't measure properly. If you don't have a plan, you can't measure in a meaningful way that talks about the value that you're creating. So the planning and measurement are integrally linked. So go and have a look at the planning guide, and then this is the measurement maturity mapper. So this is another guide. So the planning guide linked here, measurement maturity mapper linked here. Go and have a look at it. We've got 9 minutes, so I don't want to talk about it because you can go and read about it. What it does is it allows people to benchmark their measurement against other organizations, against how good their planning is, how good their reporting is, how good their impact is, and you can benchmark it, and it gives you scores. And even better, it tells you what you need to do to improve. Couple of case studies which you can download. One, Captain Tom Moore, very sadly, having been national hero, is now, his family are pretty much national zeros. I don't know if you've seen the coverage, but it looks like his foundation's going to get closed down, and it looks like they were, they built a spa or something with their own swimming pool, and I wouldn't quite say they've embezzled the money, but some of the money's not gone like where he would have intended, I'm sure. But anyway, the point of the case study on the right is, obviously this became a national phenomena. He raised 37 million quid in 30 days. It was all done through word of mouth and PR. How did he do it? What were the PR insights? So this report on the right you can download is all about measuring this in a way beyond just the counts and amounts, but to look at the story behind it. We've got 6 PR industry leaders to contribute to it. The one on the left was about the vaccine rollout program, and we benchmark different vaccine manufacturers against 10 different countries around the world, and we looked at how successfully it was communicated, and then we looked at what people thought, the outtakes in those regions, and then what they did, the outcomes in those regions. And it was really telling the differences. So in the UK, the second that the AstraZeneca vaccine was available, we all marched off and rolled our sleeves up and got ourselves inoculated, because of the way that Macron and Mitterrand, Mitterrand, I talk about Angela Merkel, communicated to the German and the French. They were very, I think largely actually because of Brexit, they were very down on the AstraZeneca vaccine because it was British. They communicated that it could be dangerous for children, then they communicated it could be dangerous for adults. Everybody was confused. When you looked at what people thought, their outtakes in France and Germany, people were scared. They were like, am I going to die if I had this vaccine? When you looked at the outcomes, were they going to get the vaccine when they could have done? They didn't. And both my parents-in-law, I'm married to a French lady, both of her parents are doctors, and they've confirmed to me that they had stocks of AstraZeneca in fridges. People wouldn't go and take it. And that obviously has an outcome that a number of people would have died in France and Germany that perhaps didn't need to. So comms matters, right? Government comms matters. And that link on the left will take you to a webinar, which we did with the UK government communications team, where they talked about their strategy and their plan. And we all talked about, about that and the reports there as well. So go and have a look at that. And then the final word, Francis Ingham was the PRCA Director General. I believe the PRCA is going to be announcing its replacement. Francis died last year. He was only 48 and sadly got ill and was taken too soon. But he was a powerhouse in our industry, a very forceful character, a great believer in what matters, and a great believer in driving PR. And Francis used to say this: we've got a talent problem. It's the biggest problem that faces our industry. The reason is we fail to recruit and retain the best talent. And that's because we don't pay enough. We don't pay enough because we don't charge clients enough. We don't charge clients enough because we don't measure the effectiveness of our work well enough. So we need to invest in better measurement, and then we can fix the biggest problem. Now, look, you guys want to go out into the marketplace and get jobs in this industry. You need to measure your work in a proper way so that you can get the salaries that you deserve. That if you go on to form your own PR agencies, you will be the successful PR agencies. If you go in-house, you will become the trusted advisor of the C-suite, because you'll be demonstrating the value and not just be a fluffy bunny that just runs around doing silly things that the business doesn't understand. So this has been recorded, so I know I went super fast, but it was important, I think, to cover off a lot of topics. We've got 5 minutes. Ruth, I'll hand to you, and we can have some questions if there are any. I can pause and have a drink, and my voice is getting more and more Barry White.
Does anybody know who Barry White is? Yeah, sorry, he's known as the Walrus of Love.
The Walrus of Love. Did they all say you don't know who Barry White is?
No one apart from you and I. But yes.
You're criminals. Get on Spotify and go and download Barry White's greatest hits, and have a nice evening with your partner listening to it.
Moving swiftly on then, chaps. Does anybody have any questions for Richard? Don't be shy, he doesn't bite, he just talks very fast.
How many of you were 2 screening throughout my whole presentation?
Well, most people were 1 screening. Yeah. Any questions for Richard?
Just a small question.
This is Jude. Jude isn't here.
Hey, Jude.
Here. Just a small question. When you said engagement metrics, like measuring likes, shares, and retweets is not really an effective way of going about it, doesn't that isn't it a little bit effective by raising the stock value of that PR agency or any other business, or am I wrong in that?
Well, you're right and you're wrong. It's what I call I think you've all frozen. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You're all frozen in a moment in time, but we can hear each other, so that's okay. So what I'm not saying is you don't measure that stuff. What I am saying is you need to measure beyond it. The likes, tweets, shares, blah, 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 the engagement metrics are digital breadcrumbs that lead to the outtakes and the outcomes. But the stuff that's of value to an organization isn't how many likes, tweets, shares, retweets, blahs that you've got. It's what they then thought and what they then did. So the trouble is that an industry that isn't paying attention and thinking about this and sees charts and thinks, well, it's chart, it must be a measurement, and just stops there, can't answer the questions that the C-suite want to know, which is, well, did what contribution to our sales effort did you make? How did you support our reputation? And so my suggestion to you is that you go beyond it. Okay, so you do measure that stuff, but you go beyond it. So when you're in your jobs, you're saying to your colleagues, well, how are we going to go beyond just likes, shares, retweets? If you go on Twitter now, by the way, and or X as I should call it, and you find a piece of content and you retweet it, if you haven't read it, Twitter will now say to you, you sure you want to retweet this? You haven't even read it. Something like 63% of retweets of content are retweeted without people having read it. So a retweet, what does that actually mean as a meaningful metric? You might tweet something and I might retweet it because I think it might make me look good, but I haven't even read it. So, it's the very weakest proxy of any kind of, has your audience ingested any of your information that you wanted to get across?
And Richard, can I ask you to just reiterate those big points that clients are looking for? You in one of the slides you have, before you go into the metrics or the not metrics, what PR agencies measure, and this might just help to focus your mind on moving from output to outcome, to outtake to outcome.
Yeah. So the top three. So this was from ECO, which is the global sort of PR agency group. It sits above the PRCA, the International Communications Consultants Organization. The top three things that they measured were, how did you support sales? How do you support us with our brand purpose? And how are you supporting our reputation? So those were the top three objectives that the client wants PR support for. And the metrics, if you look down this entire list, where do we see sales? We see sales 1, 2, 3, 4 up from the bottom. It's the bottom one that's listed as anything that's actually specific. The very bottom one says nothing. The second bottom one says other. The third bottom one says unspecified measurement. God knows what that is. The fourth bottom one then is sales. And the one above that's advocacy metrics, which is basically reputation. So we've got sales and reputation and brand purpose in the top three things that organizations are asking PR pros to support them on. And we're responding with, well, they're the two least important things I'm going to tell you about, but I'm going to tell you I've been really busy. Look at all these clips I've got for you. That's a huge disconnect. I hope that makes sense. So we've got to go beyond it, right?
Richard, I hate to say it, we're out of time, but that was brilliant. Thank you very much. If you send me your deck, that would be incredibly helpful, and then I'll circulate the deck via Blackboard. Can we just give Richard a quick round of applause, please?
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Listen, good luck with everything. Please feel free to find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter and connect. And if you've got any questions, then ping me a message. I'm always happy to help. So I'm not going to write your PR strategy for you, but I am friendly, and as Ruth says, I don't bite. So, and Ruth, yes, let's go and have a beer. So let me know. Yeah, all right. Okay, good luck, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Stop recording.